So this week, we have some interesting things starting. They are kind of an ongoing process of what I believe is a strategy and a process of Europe mobilizing itself towards war, or a wartime Europe. Now, I don't know exactly what this is going to look like. I'm going to speak a little bit more about that later. I do believe today, with the arrest of Marine Le Pen, that this is a political strategy to get rid of any people that could oppose any sort of political, social strategy towards war, most likely, obviously, against Russia with European allies. So what exactly happened today? Marine Le Pen was sentenced in France for embezzlement of European funds on March 31st, 2025. A Paris court found her guilty of misusing European Parliament funds between 2004 and 2016 to pay staff for National Rally RN party in France. Essentially, Marine Le Pen, to make it easy to understand, is of the right-wing party, just like Trump. They compare her to Trump a lot. And again, that's the big boogeyman, right? Trump is always compared to Nazis. That's the way you just vilify everybody you don't want to be in power. And it's the easiest way, right? Immediately it evokes emotions and causes people to go, oh, I'm not a Nazi, I'm going to go against that. With no proof, no actual connection, just yelling it. But again, that goes back to psychological projection, which I've been talking a lot about in my videos. And I think if you've been watching, you'll understand what I mean by psychological projection. Just simply put, those people pointing fingers, blaming other people for vile or despicable things, or just accusing them of things that there's no proof for, them themselves are guilty of. The reason I find this interesting is I believe this is a move by the left-wing political French government, most likely also pushed by other European nations, to get rid of any political opposition in the future that could put any sort of damper on a war with Russia. Now, this doesn't mean there's going to be a war with Russia. That's the way I'm looking at this. Though a lot of the information I've been looking at shows that Europe is mobilizing towards a war effort, and that's many different countries within the European nations. But I don't necessarily believe that they're going to go with a direct head-on war with Russia. Hopefully, they have learned their lessons from history that you can't just march into Russia and think you're going to win. And again, that's the thing. I don't think they're going to march into Russia. I think this is another get-rich-quick scheme for all of the politicians and the people and the lobbyists that support them. I believe what's going to happen, most likely, and especially if Russia doesn't overreact to whatever the European Union does with threats, I do believe most likely this will just be the European countries mobilizing all manufacturing towards war efforts, thereby diverting government funds into these war efforts and making everybody rich. And then eventually, somehow, all of that wartime equipment that's being made is going to be eventually shipped off and sold to lower, smaller third world countries. And you're basically doubling your profit. I think all of this is a scheme to double their profit. I don't think there's going to be essentially a proxy war, what the United States has been doing with Ukraine and giving them equipment and funds to fund the war that they're going against Russia with right now. And if they do, it's not going to be on that large of a scale. But I do believe the European Union's whole motive is financial. Every time you look at all of these leaders, they all pretend that they're altruistic, and they never are. It's always somebody on the back end getting very rich. It's always somebody that is fabricating something, getting really rich. At the cost of their people, at the cost of all of the finances that they have, they are willing to pretend to go to war with Russia so that they can fill their deep pockets. And I always wonder when I hear people say, I support Ukraine. What does that mean? Are you going to send your children? Are you sending all of your money there for the efforts? What does I support Ukraine mean? And at what costs? As in all of my videos, I really always believe that people should look at their own community and their own country first and make sure that all of their problems are fixed before they start going and meddling in other parts of the world. I understand at least partially why the United States was meddling in Ukraine. We had a lot of biolabs. We had a lot of dirty money heading that way that was always funneling back somehow into the pockets of American politicians and most likely lobbyists and everybody else. But it's never as pretty as it seems. When you see those soldiers dying on both sides, realize that those people are not the ones ever profiting from this. Most of the time, those poor soldiers don't even really know what they're fighting for. It's always old men that know these other old men that push these young people to die on the battlefields, and they confuse the public and get support from the public to send these kids off to die. And all that happens after all of this war is these people get rich off of everybody's blood, sweat, and tears.